Good morning, all. Thank you for joining this NWR Communications webinar online this morning. We have Simon Finnis, who is the Executive Director of White Rock Minerals, WRM. Simon's had a very busy start to his appointment to this company last October 22. So he's going to run us through what he's been up to for about 20 minutes. Slide by slide, and then we do have an opportunity to ask questions at the end through Zoom chat. So you will be on mute while Simon's talking, but if you have a question, do enter it in Zoom chat and we will get to it at the end, and we'll try to round it all up in about 30 minutes. So thank you, Simon, for joining us this morning.
Right, thanks, Aidan, and thanks everybody for joining in. It's a busy time of year, I understand, so happy that people are able to join us and go through this story, an evolving story, and one I think people don't really quite understand given the share price. Anyway, we'll get into it. Disclaimer, I won't dwell on that today, but people should read that. There are some assumptions around our zinc equivalent and silver equivalent numbers we use in the presentation for Red Mountain. They are extremely conservative, and I would encourage you to have a look at those and see what you think. So from company overview point of view, we obviously have the Woods Point gold mine, which is the background of this picture. That's the head frame. In Victoria, we're ramping that project up, and we're obviously hoping to be a steady state in that little mine in the next several months. Red Mountain in Alaska, we've had that project for about 5 years. We've already got a very significant silver and zinc resource there. And White Gold, which is a little gold project also in Alaska, a couple hundred k's from Red Mountain. And Mount Carrington, which is, of course, is in joint venture with Thompson Resources. So we've got a couple of assets that offer production potential and exploration upside. Obviously, from a production point of view, we're talking about Woods Point in the short term, and the other projects in Alaska, we'll be developing those as soon as, obviously, we go through the various milestones you need to do. High-grade gold mine in Victoria, low market cap, obviously very, very cheap. And look, we've just refreshed the board, and we've got an experienced team. We've got a great team on site at Woods Point, and we're pushing hard to get to the next phase. Corporate snapshot, 270 million shares on option, not many options on issue, I should say, not many options now. We did have a number of options expire at the end of January. We had very little cash in December, but of course we've raised money since then, and we have a shortfall still from a entitlement issue. We've got about $1.5 million left of that shortfall to place. Market cap very low at 17.1, and EV just a bit higher than that given the small amount of debt we have. Directors and senior management, pretty good team. As I said, fairly new. The only long-term director still remaining on board is Paul. He's also a major shareholder and a very, very good director. Peter joined last June. I joined in October, and Jason Beckton also joined in October to give us a bit of gravitas around the geology side of the business. Lionel runs our project in Victoria, doing a great job. So these are the snapshot of the three projects. Obviously, one in production, Woods Point in Victoria, high grade with a history of producing gold for a number of years, over 100 years. We've got a shaft and an operating processing plant, so a fully permitted project operating in Victoria. And so that's a huge asset for us. Development potential in Alaska with Red Mountain. We have 860 square kilometres at Red Mountain, and another 24 square kilometres at White Gold. And we've got a JORC resource there, just over 20 million tonnes, which is very, very close to being developable. Obviously, Alaska has its challenges. You can see in the picture behind me how we do our drilling. It's a remote site. We heli everything in, so it is some challenging, has some challenging conditions, and certainly, obviously, the climate, given winter is heavily snow and so on. So we have a shorter window to explore there, and it is a very, very significant asset. And of course, the joint venture, which I'll gloss over today because really it's in someone else's bucket. Thompson Resources have the right to earn up to 71% on the basis of a joint venture. So Woods Point, this is the plant, really quite new, rated at about 80,000 tonnes a year. We don't run it full time. The mine capacity is much less than that. We're not sure exactly why they built such a significant plant, but we're using that as we need to, and it operates beautifully. So it's running at capacity when we have it on, 70 or 80 tonnes an hour, and hasn't really missed a beat since we turned it back on last year. We poured our first gold in October. We've been pouring gold ever since, but we really won't be at full whack until the middle of this year, when we start to be consistently operating in the stoping areas. So this is the basis of the restart. We have areas that we've identified in Dickinson South, areas we've identified in Kenny and McNally's, and we've got the upside really at the gap zone. That the shaft goes down to 20 level, but we have access only to 10 level. So obviously we're focusing in the short term, next 2 or 3 or 4 years, in that level surface to 10. So since we started way back, we've developed all the ore haulage levels at level 4, level 9. We're heading out towards Dickinson's now in this area. We're driving out there, so a development drive, where from there we'll move on to Exhibition, and then from 4 level we'll jump over to Stackpool Reef. So it takes a little while on handheld mines to develop, but we are heading towards these high-grade gold intercepts that we've intersected. They've all been reported, and again, I won't dwell on those, but obviously spectacular grades, 0.3 at 130 grams, 0.2 at 140 grams, but this is a very narrow little ore body, anywhere between 0.4, 0.5 meters of a meter, I should say. So it is a handheld only, low tonnage, high grade gold mine. The second area we developed ore haulage on level 9. So all the material will come down through passes to level 9, will be taken to the shaft and then taken to the surface via the shaft. We've entered McNally's now. We'll be stoping McNally's very soon. We've just opened up Maxwell's and Stones, which is down between 7 and 8 level. And we have an area there we're starting to stope as well. So we have no real visibility on the grade of that area. So we're doing some test work now, but we're hoping that supports us while we develop out to further in McNally's and obviously out to Dickinson's. But you can see some of the grades we're throwing out here: 0.3 at 100 grams, 0.3 at 222 grams. We're actually one cut away from that intersection. We think we're a bit above it, but obviously we're getting into some high grade area, and we hope to obviously keep pushing forward. And the gap zone, there's no geological reason for there to be not further reefs in this area. It's not well drilled, it's not well understood, but we plan to do that. It's not on our urgent priority list, given we've got a number of years in the higher levels, and to access that area we'll need to spend more capital, dewater the shaft and open the shaft up to deeper. But certainly the first stage there is to drill some holes and just see what we've got. So we'll be doing that in the next year or so. Regional exploration, we're there. That's pretty much straight in the middle of our tenement package there. We've got a very significant 600 square kilometres tenement package. You've got a table there that gives you an idea of the gold that has been mined out of this area over time. The Walhalla-Cohen Reef is probably the jewel in the crown of these areas. About 1.5 million ounces came out of that reef at an ounce. So pretty spectacular grades. Obviously, Victoria is known for these high-grade zones. There's a mine about 10 k's north of us called A1, owned by Kaiser Reef. They're mining as well and hauling their material to Malden for processing. And we have a mining lease at the Rose of Denmark. So we're now looking at reopening Rose of Denmark. Obviously, we need to get some further approvals. We have a mining lease, but it would need some work. But we certainly think there's some supplemental ore for our plant here at Morningstar, and we would obviously, that would add a huge amount of value if we can start mining on another mining lease within 10 k's of that project and keep that plant running much more of the time. So we see that as a very, very good way to add some value. Moving into Alaska, these maps are straight out of our data pack, so they're all a bit scratchy. We're getting them redone, but you can see the main project, Red Mountain's about 100 k's south of Fairbanks, so it is in quite difficult terrain, but it does sit right in the Tintina Gold Belt, which is the home to other things like Donlin Gold, which is 35 million ounces, Red Dog, Pogo, which you all would have heard of because it's owned by Northern Star, about 10 million ounces, Fort Knox, another multi-million ounce ore body, and White Gold is just down the southern edge of that belt, and we'll spend a little bit more time on that as we go through. We've got a very significant package at Red Mountain, smaller package at White Gold, but very specifically for gold. And we've got resources at Red Mountain, 20 million tonnes, and we believe Alaska is a great place to do business. Here's a much zoom in on on the Red Mountain project. The first part of the project is the Red Mountain VMS to the right-hand side. We've got two resources, one at Dry Creek, one at WTF, that's West Tunra Flats, for those of you who wonder what the acronym could stand for. We haven't done much work on the VMS at Last Chance. We've done a little bit of work on the gold project and east at Last Chance, and you can see a very, very significant gold anomaly there that really, really needs some follow-up. So this place, or is already in 5 years, these guys we've already discovered a significant resource, 20 million tonnes at about 8.5% zinc equivalent, or about 390 silver equivalent, 390 grams silver equivalent. So that is significant. 820,000 tonnes of zinc, 60 million ounces of silver, and 400,000 ounces of gold in an equivalent basis. So it's a pretty significant ore body. There are obviously infrastructure challenges in Alaska, so we certainly need to make that bigger. But we'll be doing that as best as we can from today. The other VMS belt to the left, it's called the Last Chance VMS, underexplored, but lots of great shows on the surface that have all been marked there. And of course, I've spoken briefly about Last Chance, but we really think that that's a very, very significant gold anomaly, and we're very much looking forward to doing some more exploration there. So this is a bit more about Red Mountain. This is actually a section through Dry Creek, a long section. You can see it's open at depth. You can see it's open to the east. We think it might be closed off to the west given that fault, but we haven't drilled any holes, so we don't know. And you can start to see some of the numbers we've generated out of there. And the bottom one, which is the deepest intersection, 1.5 meters of about 50% lead plus zinc, including some copper, including some silver, and including some gold. So this could be a very, very special ore body. We need to do more holes to bring some of these numbers into that resource, and that's the challenge, is to get enough money together to go drilling in Alaska in the 6-month window we have every year to do the work. So this is a very exciting project that just needs more exploration work from our perspective. White gold, quite new. This is only pegged back in April 2022. It's a hydrothermal gold quartz project. There's only about 20 holes been drilled into this thing. There are some intersections. So Goldberg, you can see on the site, we've got 18-metre trench on the surface at 9 grams. You've got Shilosky with 19-metre trench at 4 grams. We've got drill holes, of course, too. So 27 metres at 3 grams from 88 metres at Shilosky. And we've also got 20 metres at 2.5 grams at the low deposit, or the low prospect, I should say. And as I mentioned, we'll play a bit of neurology, but this is obviously close to Kinross Gold, which is Fort Knox, nearly 12 million ounces, 11 million ounces at Pogo, and 35 million ounces at Donlin Creek. So this part of the world throws up magnificent gold projects. So just summarising, we're obviously a gold producer, still in the ramp-up phase and still funding that ramp-up phase. We believe there is significant regional potential for further discoveries and further gold in that package we have, but we actually are prioritising at this stage Rosa Denmark to get more feed into the plant. Resource expansion at Red Mountain, it's only a matter of drilling more holes in our view, and we think there is very, very real potential for a high-grade VMS camp. There's enough shows on the surface that give us that confidence. Heaps of upside at Alaska, both in the VMS side and in the gold. We're very excited about the gold, particularly at Last Chance. So to sort of put us in a box, we're a gold producer, albeit small gold producer. We've got a strong gold price. We're all pretty gold bulls, I imagine. Significant exploration potential and heaps of upside given the market capitalisation. Just to work through the last year, obviously February 2022, we announced the new resource at Red Mountain. April, they pegged new ground at White Gold. In June, we started revitalising the board and the management team, put the new chairman in there who has restructured the board and restructured the company. October 22, I joined to help along with Jason. The mine is in the ramp-up stage, and we're pushing really hard to get to those areas where we can develop some stopes and start to get consistent ore out of the shaft and consistent gold every week. And of course, Mount Carrington with our joint venture partner, Thompson's. So we have a very exciting strategy, obviously, get the gold mine up to speed, get some more dirt in the mines, in the plant, so we can make some more money, and then ramp up Alaska and push as hard as we possibly can on all sides. So that's it from the formal side, Aidan. So look, happy to take questions.
Yeah, perfect timing, Simon. Great run through. We do have questions coming through. So if anyone wants to ask, do put them in the question function chat on Zoom. So yeah, it looks like a lot of work that you've been involved in since you joined in October. So there's a lot going on there for the market cap. So the questions are, just trying to sum them up. Some of them overlap, focus a lot around Alaska. What specific plans for exploration for Red Mountain do you have in terms of timelines, and probably overlapping, for a small company, how do you plan to extract value from such a big acreage patch? You're looking at partners, you're looking at funding from the gold project, external funding. So yeah, lots of the questions around Alaska. How do you see that going forward?
Yeah, sure. And so it should be. It's very exciting. Look, Alaska is really the reason I think we're all here. We see that as the absolute blue sky for this company. So that's a priority for us. And we believe at this stage, we have several parties already in the data room. We're looking at taking on partners there. Perfect world is we would maintain the operatorship of the project and maintain control, but bring in a partner with some deep pockets who wants to explore in Alaska. There's obviously plenty of North American partners we're looking at there. The current strategy is to try and farm out the VMS projects and retain the gold projects. We don't want to give away all the upside in the gold, given the early stage nature of those assets. So from our perspective, given the VMS is already well advanced, there's already a bunch of value there, although it's not shown in our market cap. We believe, and we've already seen several parties attracted to that project, and we're hoping to attract a partner there, sign up an agreement, and hopefully make the next season, which is around May, June.
Great, thanks, Simon. Any more questions on that, do put them through on the chat. I'm going to ask this one in a sensitive manner. In terms of the Mount Carrington joint venture, what are the contingencies or the contractual terms if the partner, for example, couldn't meet ongoing funding obligations?
That's very topical given where we are today. Look, I have to be sensitive about that too. And look, I've spoken to Thompson. We'll be speaking to Thompson again in the next little while and formulate our plans. At this point in time, they are not in breach in any terms of the joint venture. We believe they've been a good partner and done the best they can. But in tough times, everyone has to consider their position, and we'll be talking together and making those decisions over the next few weeks.
Thanks, Simon. A bit of a broader question while I'm just reading down through the chat. Obviously, new chairman, new management team. I think you've touched on this in the presentation, but perhaps just reiterate, what is the new focus, direction, strategy that you're taking the company going forward?
Well, we think that given we're producing gold in Victoria, that we really should focus on gold. So we're gold bulls. We are seeing long-term value in the gold market. Hence, the strategy in Alaska is to look for partners in the VMS side, but retain our focus on the gold assets. That's not only a gold question; it's also I guess from our a statement about where the project is at. I mean, that gold project could be anything. You don't want to give it away before you've shown people exactly what it could be. So we want to do some more work on the gold project. We're doing an extensive review on what we have from the point of view of data. We have a team in Alaska that are focused on that. A couple of guys from an office. Obviously, we're treading water and it's on care and maintenance at the moment. It's not accruing many costs, but we do really want to spend some time. Everyone's right. We do need to make money out of the mine in Victoria to fund Alaska. We don't want to keep coming back to shareholders. Obviously, we've seen in the last couple of months how difficult that is and how difficult this equity market is. So we don't want to keep beating our shareholders up and diluting everybody. So we see the way to go is to get the mine up to capacity, get that to the point where it's making money, it can look after itself on our expectations or on our forward looks. And we're hoping, obviously, to do more work on the gold side, but attract a partner on the VMS side in Alaska. And in that way, we believe we'll add a lot of value.
Thanks, Simon. Questions keep coming through on Alaska, a bit of chomping at the bit on this one. In terms of timing, obviously this is subject to the partnership, I'd imagine, but could we see drilling for a resource expansion of the VMS in Alaska this year or the next 12 months? Is it that imminent?
Look, that's certainly the aim, and we have communicated that goal to the people who are in the data room. So certainly that's the aim. Obviously, it's not a perfect world, and to have an agreement, you need to get at least two people to agree. So there's got to be an agreement in place to be able to do that. But we're very hopeful that people see the value, and we've made it very clear that we don't want to lose momentum in Alaska. So we do need to do some work there as soon as we can.
Just a bit more on the nuts and bolts. What's hard to judge, but what's roughly is the current cash burn, and what's the status in terms of the entitlement shortfall?
Look, we're currently road showing as required and talking to people about the shortfall. The share price isn't helping, clearly, being at 6.3, and given the issue price is 7. We've had so far about I think 500 come in of shortfall that we've managed to place. Myself and Peter Mangana put in $100,000 each that shareholders approved at the last meeting. And we have commitments from other parties for about another 650, hasn't come in yet. So that's where I got to with my maths. We're about $1.5 million away from placing all of that shortfall. And we're talking to many different people about how we could get that done over the next couple of weeks. Obviously, the sooner we put that to bed, the sooner you take the shackles off the share price. Given that thing's at 7, then the share price generally hangs around that mark, even though we're lower than that today, until you get rid of that overhangs, so to speak. The mine itself, look, it varies a bit. Our short-term target is to produce 80 ounces of gold a week. That covers all our costs and covers a bit extra. The budget has us producing more than that for the back half of the year.
Thanks, Simon. Just probably a question related to that. How much capital do you need to put into the mine to get it to that level of self-sufficiency?
We pretty much sunk all the capital that it needs to get there. We put in the ovens, we put in the new boggers underground, the new scrapers. We certainly could spend a bit more money on the shaft if we had money freed up, and we plan on doing it in the back half of the year. We want to do a bit more work on our water purification system. Obviously, we pump the water out of the mine. We need to purify that water before we can release it in the environment. So we're doing some more work on that. And look, we'd love to be able to do a little bit more work on the plant, but that's all. What we've currently spent on the mine gets us to what we're calling steady state. But the stuff I'm talking about are improvements that we'd like to do to make either life easier or life better, or get better recoveries, or so on. Sorry, it is a small mine, so the capital we're talking about is modest. Between $0 and $2 million altogether if we were to do all of those initiatives I spoke of just then.
Right. If there's any further questions, do put them through. But there's one remaining, just in terms of the next 12 months. People following your stock. There's 2 questions coming at this from 2 different directions. But what's the 3 or 4 key headlines that people need to look out for that shows the progress and you're hitting your targets?
Oh, look, I certainly think that we need to get Woods Point to the point where it's at steady state, and prove to everybody that the drilling we did last year actually did identify areas we could mine. I think that's a key goal. This is a nuggety mine, so everyone who understands nuggety gold mines knows that you drill a hole in one place and a metre away, you might drill another hole and get completely different answers, and that's just the way these mines operate. But you do actually get higher grade areas, lower grade areas, and then areas with almost nothing. So you need to work through the good days and the bad days, and opening up a number of different headings all at once is the way to sort of hedge against that outcome. So I guess from my perspective, getting steady state at the mine, we'll start to announce production results over the next couple of months, probably on a monthly basis. But at the moment, it's just so meaningless. It's just not worth doing it. Secondly, clearly, the huge upside in Alaska is worth watching. We are doing a data review. Once we've done that, we'll go through that. We're going through that tomorrow, and I would anticipate we'll do some sort of announcement to give everyone an idea what we've come up with. And obviously, as I've said, we're looking for partners in the VMS side and hoping to retain all the gold upside.
Great, thanks, Simon. More questions coming through, so we'll try to wrap up as many as we can. There was a question on more updates that you're going to provide in webinars. I think you've outlined a lot of news flow in the next 12 months, so we'll be more than happy to host you as often as it takes, Simon, to get the story out there. So yeah, expect to hear a lot more. A couple of questions on Woods Point. What's the current recovery? And second one, what's the current staffing levels and what's required?
We aim for it's a gravity circuit. It doesn't have any of the cyanide or leaching extraction methods. So we get all our gold through gravity, and then we calcine the concentrate, and then we smelt the concentrate. So we are somewhere between 80 and 90% recovery in general. To go any higher than that, you really need to leach somewhere. We haven't got approval to leach with cyanide, obviously, on this site, so that's not a thing that we can manage right now. So for the moment, we're banking on 80 to 90% recovery, probably about 85, and that gets us through quite easily. What was the other guy? Staffing levels. We're about mid-40s, 45 people, and about 65 to 70% of those guys and girls are underground, and the rest are in the plant and support roles, health and safety, obviously, environmental, geology, and maintenance. So long term, when we're at full whack, steady state, particularly if we bring in another source of ore, we'll need to upsize the mill staff in particular to run that more consistently. And I think full whack, we're about 60 people.
That's great, Simon. That covers off on most of the Q&A. If anyone has any further questions, do forward them to either myself or Simon. You should have our emails on the presentation. So, Simon, maybe give you 30 seconds just to wrap up. I think you've done a good job, but if you want to sum up what you're expecting to present to us in 12 months' time, what's the achievements you've hit?
I think it's just being consistent in the message and in the mine itself. We've got to get that mine to the point where it generates tons every day, every week, every month. And you can't do that in a handheld mine without a number of headings. And I think the market hasn't quite understood that we need to develop those headings and those levels to get to that point. And that's where we are. We're still in that process. It's not easy. It's not fast. So once you start to see good production numbers coming out of it, we're sort of past that ramp up phase into the steady state. Because we don't have a JORC resource at Woods Point, we can't do forward looking statements. So that's hence we haven't done any of that, and we'll be reporting backwards forever. And look, we're obviously pushing really hard to get some value out of Red Mountain. Everyone can do the maths on the resource that's there. We need to drill some more holes in it and make it bigger. We're very confident there's more, but we need to do the work. And look, we think that's plenty of blue sky in Red Mountain and in Alaska in general.
Thank you, Simon. Bang on 30 minutes. So that was a great run through. And as I said, definitely look forward to hosting you again in the not too distant future with more positive updates. So, and thank you everyone else for those questions. It was very good. And if there's any more, do send them through. Thank you.
Thanks, Hayden. Thanks, everyone.